Hey everybody, this is Gainer Milky, and this is the Conscious Success Plan where we're upskilling for life. And life is love, identity, family, and enterprise. So today I have something exciting. I thought it was exciting to share about an experience I had today. I went to WOW, which is Women of Wisdom, through the Unity Church in Plymouth, Michigan. And I was invited by one of my dear friends who is 84. And one of the things that I think is so important and so wonderful is the wisdom that is contained in the humans who have lived longer than you may have. So it's all relative. Obviously, for kids, their parents are hopefully wisdom bringers, as are children to parents. But when you've gained more life experience, you just have more to offer. And I'll probably do another video on ageism and the patriarchy and culture. Actually, it was so profound to think about that lens when I walked into the room of a totally different lens, which just lends itself to the obvious but not always conscious fact that it really depends on your environment. So, for example, we hear about, um, you know, women being invisible over 50, or you're too young to know what you're doing, or all of these stereotypes that are perpetuated by people who generally just want to feel superior in the moment, um, and make by making others feel bad. And I think that's a problem in and of itself. But when I walked into this room of women, there was probably 40 40 women in a big circle, and I was the youngest. And I'm 52. I just turned 52, and I don't feel past my prime. And actually, none of them did either. And that was kind of the whole point of the gathering today. It was a croning ceremony, and I thought it was great. I don't actually like the word crone, but crone comes from the Latin crown. And so actually, I'll give you a sneak preview. We made crowns, so I'll wear it here. Um, and really, the crown is given to women when they have the most wisdom. So, I was talking to my friend on the way back after we'd experienced this croning ceremony. Just put it on the right way. Um, and one of the like big takeaways for me was actually just how all of the stories that came up, people were invited to bring something to the ceremony to talk about. So much of it was about the relationship that these women had to their mothers. And this was not anything actually to do with mothers, but just matriarchal figures and the whole croning example. Now, maybe there's a droning ceremony for men, when you actually reach consciousness and know how to treat people with respect and empathy, I hope. I'm sure that there's some men out there who would love to do a droning ceremony, but there's a whole lot less of the passing on of stories and knowledge, I think, in the male culture. So I think that's something that must be addressed. And I know that there are people who are doing content online and writing books, and hopefully in male only circles, that's one day going to become commonplace. But in this circle of the croning ceremony, the people shared so much about the impact that their mother and the mother relationship and the quality of it shared and what an impact that had on us. So I think this is just an example of how getting together in a community and taking the time to be conscious of what is impacting you. And, it was both sad and I guess refreshing to see that so many of these women who were probably, you know, in their later 60s to even 80 or older, um, were still kind of realizing the impact of their upbringing on them. And many of them talked about going to therapy or reading, books and things like that. So I think the most important thing from this video about the croning ceremony was that it really is an opportunity to reflect and also to give voice to what your experience is as a woman as you progress through life. And I think that no matter who you are, um, the older that you get, the more you have to offer. And I think that it's really quite sad and sadistic and disturbing that certain people make age part of their arsenal in tearing other people down. And so that's just not part of what I want in my life. And so I really don't want to do a lot of videos on age. I want to think about wisdom and humans and how we are all equal and have value. So it was a great reminder to me that there are other people who feel that way in the world, and I found many of them at this gathering of unity and consciousness and celebration, really. One other takeaway from this croning ceremony that I thought was wonderful was actually the reference to hair, because obviously the crowning of this hair um, was that throughout the ages and cultures, long hair has been prized, not just because it can signal youth, which is interesting when when you hear the rest of this, but because the longer your hair gets, the more wisdom you have, and that's why you often see Native Americans with very long braids. And so you think about all the life that your hair has seen, and so maybe that's the excuse to go and treat your hair extra well when you go to the salon or barber shop. But I thought that was really kind of an interesting takeaway as well. One last story that I think ties in so perfectly and poignantly to this whole idea of a croning ceremony, which is predominantly, I guess, women oriented, though I'd like to do a droning ceremony. Um, there was a woman who she actually had done one of the first croning ceremonies for some of the other women in a different venue. And she brought this story, which I thought was just like, it just spoke so much about so many different levels. When she was a child, and I'm guessing she was probably in her 80s, she had super long hair. In fact, she said her hair was so long that she could sit on the braids, which is really, really long. And I remember reading about Laura Ingalls in, I think it was These Happy Golden Years, one of her later books, where she had hair that long. But this was an 8-year-old girl who had super long hair. Her hair was super thick, and she said it was kind of copperish because her family was Irish. And she had started getting these headaches, and she said like every morning she would sit and eat her cereal and her mother would braid her hair. And then when it got to be so long that she needed it pinned up, her mother would make these coils on her head. So she's 8 and she's got these coils on her head, and she started getting headaches. And so finally her mother took her to the doctor, and the doctor said, well, the first thing you should do is get rid of half of that hair because, pinning it up and well, it's a lot of weight on the head. So she said that afternoon, her mother took her to get her hair cut, and they took about half of it, half the length off. And she was like, I felt so good and light. She got home, and her father and her brother didn't speak to her for 3 days because her hair was her crowning glory. And how dare she like get it cut without their permission? And I thought, wow, so many levels. One, she's not being seen as a person, she's being seen as her physical manifestation in the world. Two, how devaluing of your own family member. And three, no concern at all for her health. So, so upsetting for me, but she just had taken it in stride, and I guess I can take a lesson from that because obviously her father were not very conscious. Oh, and they didn't speak to her mother either. So, wow. Um, I sure hope that that's a lesson to all of us in seeing people for who they are, especially a child, and not what they look like or what they do. So, those were some great takeaways from this croning ceremony. And maybe you want to do your own croning ceremony, so you could look it up online. We got certificates at the end. We had a toast with sparkling water and sparkling juice, and it was just wonderful. It was about a 3-hour program, but it was so valuable, and just hearing people's stories, I think also validates them. So, um, thank you. Hopefully, you didn't find me droning about croning. Not worthwhile. Maybe give it a try with some of your friends. If you're male, try a droning ceremony, and maybe I'll come up with a program for that. So take care, celebrate yourself no matter what chronological um, manifestation you're in right now, and don't listen to the age haters because they are no better than the father who didn't speak to their daughter who cut her braids.